Now that the spring game is over, the local guys and the national guys have all weighed in on their thoughts about how Oklahoma had performed, and it's kind of surprising what we got out of it. I mean, there's a lot of people that still had questions, including the national guys and the local guys, but it's kind of wild to see who actually is kind of sold on Oklahoma and who's not. Honestly, one even said they thought national championship's an opportunity. Let's dive into that. Before we do that, welcome to Unfair Sports. I'm your host, Jay. Thank you for pulling up to the channel. All right, let's talk about Oklahoma and the national media's look on the spring game. And so Josh Pate, our beloved guy over there at 247, weighed in on his thoughts on Oklahoma and the spring game and how he felt about their performance. Let's listen to him talk about it.
Oklahoma spring game yesterday. Least shocking headline of spring, but it's worth a paper pop. Least shocking headline. Deion Burks goes off for Oklahoma. 5 catches, 174 yards, 2 touchdowns, both of the 50-plus yard variety. And salute to Toby Keith. I see they paid him some honor on the field there. Deion Burks transferred there from Purdue, so he's been there a very short time. It's pretty wild to hear people around Oklahoma talk about him. Deion Burks may be their best receiver this year, but also he's like one of the faces of the team, and he hasn't even played a game there, and he's played a spring game. But for whatever reason, Deion Burks is the kind of guy, this happens occasionally, when you get the right kind of mentality combined with the right skill set at the right time. When they walk in the door, the room just starts gravitating around him. I'm not telling you he's a selfish guy at all. Quite the opposite. Everyone loves him there. They love him because they need him there. And he's working out of that slot position that you saw Drake Stoops in last year, except he's got a little bit different gear than Drake Stoops. So you want to buy some stock in like a connection, FanDuel, at FanDuel. Can we do this? If we want to place maybe some prop bets on quarterback to wide receiver connections this year, Jackson Arnold to Deion Burks, I'll take all of that. Whatever my limit is, go ahead and insert my limit there. Also not shocking, defensive line looks pretty good for Oklahoma. At least to me, they looked really improved. White team had 7 sacks yesterday. Secondary, they'll be okay. They're missing a couple of veterans that they'll have in the season, so I know they gave up a few chunk plays. I think they'll be okay there. I think their defense will be okay. Offensive line now, that was the big point of focus. And I'm not ready to say we're out of the woods. Certainly not out of the woods there. Certainly not. I thought because so little was expected, they pleasantly surprised me. Got to give it a second look. I've only watched the game once, but I'm going to say this with a very purposeful tone. Oklahoma offensive line better than expected? Dare we say? We better keep quiet on this. They did make a move in the portal. I'll talk about it in a second because this was a big recruiting event. Yesterday was a big recruiting event, and it's already paying dividends because as you see on the screen, if you're watching on YouTube, Branson Hickman has committed to Oklahoma like in the past couple of hours. That was SMU's starting center last year. He's likely going to be Oklahoma's starting center. He started all 14 last year. He was all AAC second team. 0 sacks allowed in 517 pass blocking snaps, according to our fine friends at PFF. So that's one. I don't think they're done, but that's one. I felt like Arnold to Burks, it's just some of the things that stick with you, stick in your mind. I remember A.D. Mitchell a few years ago at Georgia kind of popped off in the spring game. Well, he ends up catching balls to win a national title. This is not my Oklahoma wins the national title moment or anything, but outside of injury, I'd be very surprised if we didn't see Deion Burks go off this fall. That's not a mirage. That's not an illusion. That's just a playmaker that walked in the door in Norman, Oklahoma, and it doesn't matter how long he's been there. He is one of the centralized, focal points of that team now.
Now in that clip, there are a few things that jumped out to me. First and foremost, he sold on Deion Burks, just like the rest of us, right? That's the one dude that we all said, yeah, he's going to be legit. He's going to be something special. We probably need to keep our eyes on him, right? And here we are. We're talking about him. We're talking about Oklahoma's chances of going into the playoffs or even just competing in general. And Pate has been a very big advocate for Oklahoma this entire time, right? He talked about when Oklahoma and Texas goes into the SEC that they have an opportunity. They're going to walk in there, not opportunity. They're going to walk in there and tell people to move out of their seats on the bus, right? They may not take the seats at the front of the bus, but they're going to take some seats that people didn't expect that they were going to snatch, right? I can definitely see second row at minimum at the way that Oklahoma and Texas is built, specifically because you can look at the recruiting classes. And granted, both coaches have shown that they have some capabilities of getting double-digit win seasons. Venables has national championships on his belt, so does Sarkisian. So the anticipation is that Oklahoma's not going to just fall over and just be a victim to everybody there. They've got a lot to prove on the field, but the pieces are there. And Pate pointed out that, which really got my attention, right, is the fact that he recognized that he thinks Deion Burks is going to be a leader in the room as a transfer. But the room is deep, and he even acknowledged a lot of players didn't play. Now, this is what jumped out to me, and what really surprised me, I think it surprised a lot of people that Pate even addressed this, is that he actually likes the defensive line. I know, right? A lot of y'all were kind of losing your minds on it. Not everybody, not saying you, but you. You know what I'm saying? The ones that did doubt it, there was a few doubters out there that was questioning the defensive line as well as the offensive line. Pate was like, based upon what I saw, didn't look that bad. Of course, there's improvements that need to be there, which we all acknowledge. That's the best part about the spring ball. You've got tape now to recognize what needs to be fixed, and you can fix it. But he actually saw some positives with the defensive line. A lot of y'all didn't see that. Did y'all see that coming? I mean, I did, but at the same time, a lot of y'all did not feel that. Now, this is what makes it crazy is that as a national guy, he's watching all of these games and stuff. I think his perspective and view has something to recognize, something that we should take in consideration because he's watching a lot of different ones. I've watched a few different spring games for other teams, and I got questions with them as well. But the key thing is that in a spring game, somebody's got to win, somebody's got to lose. And the fascinating thing is it looks like the offensive line and defensive line, once we get healthy and add some additional depth, I think we'll be fine. The question is about long term, how we last, not really about how we actually perform. So Pate sees potential, and it's funny because at the end of his clip, he kind of talked about, national championship. Now, he's not saying it's a national championship chance, but he is saying that the way Oklahoma is built right now and the way they play in the spring game, there's a lot of reason to be optimistic. I understand we want to be pessimistic. We want to be cautiously optimistic, if anything, or at least cautious when it comes to it. But recognize, if Oklahoma puts it all together, really good chance for them to be competitive, especially with bringing back so many defensive players. Y'all know I've preached this numerous times, 79% plus returning production. There's something to consider and think about statement. Now, let's talk about what Barry Tramel had to say about Oklahoma. Yeah, the local guy. He had some words. Now, the local guy, that's kind of thing that kind of baffled me, right? Barry Tramel over there at Sellout Crowd wrote an article that launched this morning, actually while I was recording this, actually before I recorded it, and he's pointing out that he doesn't believe that Oklahoma's SEC ready. He thinks that the 2017 team was SEC ready, but doesn't think this one is SEC ready. I guess I can look at the argument that he has, right? I mean, based upon the article, you guys can read it. I put it in the description if you want to go through and check it out. But the bigger piece he's pointing out is that there's a lot of needs when it comes to the offensive and the defensive line. And we have to ask ourselves, are they ready physically to handle it, right? OU didn't do very well in his first two seasons at Oklahoma, going 6-7 and 10-3. And I'm fascinated at the, I guess you could say, pessimism that we're seeing from even the local guys, which granted, Barry's been around 45 years. He's been doing this for a while. He's seen a lot. And so I could totally understand that. But I don't see how with Oklahoma's recruiting classes that we've had with this new regime, why anyone would think that they don't have a chance of being ready. Everything about them is lining up for them to be potentially ready and prepared to be competitive in the SEC. How do we miss that? Like, what about that makes us think that Oklahoma doesn't have a chance? Kind of shocks me when I saw it, but at the same time, he's entitled to his opinion, and there is some logic in his thought process. It's been 7 years since Oklahoma's really competed for the playoffs. I mean, really competed. Like that Bob Stoops 17 team, the one that Lincoln Riley led into the playoffs, that one should have been the team that won the Natty, right? If the defense was more focused, and everything. That was a natty team. Shouldn't have lost to Georgia in the first round because we were beating Georgia's tail all the way in the first half, right? If you would have just kept it in the hand of your Heisman Trophy winner, I know I'm opening up another old wound. I understand that, but that's my point. Today's team defensively is completely different in comparison, and we're seeing the improvement. They've improved year over year from the first year to this year, especially with all the turnover. Now we're seeing them get to that point that we need them to be at. So I get what Barry is saying, but at the same time, I am in the camp that Oklahoma is right there at the point that they need to be successful. So that's it. Hop in the comments. Let me know your thoughts. How y'all feeling about the comments from Josh Pate as well as Barry Tramel? Think there's some truth there? Think there's some craziness? Love to hear from you all. You made this far, like the content, please hit that like button if you're new to the channel, subscribe. Love for y'all to join this family of college football fans, talking all you football, college football in general, having a blast doing it. So we will go live tomorrow. Commitment is expected. And we'll dive into that. Let's talk soon. Peace.